Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today we're going to be talking about the action economy of Pathfinder 2e, or at least a small subsection of it. A term that gets thrown about a bit online that can be a little bit confusing to people who are new to the system, or at least new to discussions on it, is the idea of wasting your third action or getting a good use out of it. And today we're going to be talking about that idea. Essentially, the third action is the idea that it's not always a good idea to spend all of your actions in a turn attacking, and you want to make all of your actions count. So you can improve that by spending your quote-unquote third action, where you would be taking a lot of penalties, to instead do a skill action or move into a better position. Before we go over some of the examples of good ways to use these third actions, let's talk about why they're important in the first place. See, for martial characters, multiple attack penalties are a huge deal, and while it's tempting to attack using all three of your actions in a turn, any attacks at multiple attack penalty are way less likely to actually do anything unless you're a fighter with an agile weapon or a flurry ranger. There are going to be some times where these Hail Mary attacks are needed or can be incredibly important, but they are pretty uncommon, so having an alternative way to use those actions adds for a ton of combat versatility and is honestly just a good idea. Also, don't think that these actions and this idea of not wanting to waste any of your actions is unique in any way to martial characters. If a spellcaster casts a 2-action spell and then they don't need to move, then what exactly do they want to do with that third action of theirs? That third action could actually happen before they cast their spell, but it's still that kind of nebulous third action that's floating around. Having an additional way to use actions in your back pocket, or whenever you don't really know exactly what to do, or what exactly would be optimal, is exactly what we're talking about in this video. So let's just start talking about some of them. I'm not going to be going hugely into detail here on each one of these actions, as I've actually made videos covering most of these before, so you can look those up if you're interested, but generally speaking you should be fine, as these are pretty straightforward normally. Obviously, these actions also have to use a single action, as otherwise they'd be taking up too much of your turn, and you're kind of looking for these to be filler. The best example that I can think of for your third action is Demoralized. It's kind of the shining example of what third action, again, imagine quotations around that, sort of abilities are made to do. To demoralize someone, you have to be intimidating, but it allows you to apply Frighten to anyone that speaks the same language as you, and that is incredibly powerful. Frightened is one of the best conditions in the entire game, and it can help out your entire party. Trying to intimidate someone before you cast a spell on them or attack them helps out both you and your entire party, and it's genuinely amazing. Another great charisma third action sort of action that you can take is Bon Mot, the diplomacy skill feat. It gives you another great charisma based use for third actions is Bon Mot, the diplomacy skill feat. It allows for you to use an action to make a quip at someone and then give them a pretty hefty penalty on their will saves and perception checks. And it also eats up their action economy. This is absolutely amazing if you can use it to synergize with the rest of your party if they have a lot of effects that require will saves. Now, shifting over to the more defensive side of things, raising a shield is the obvious use for your third action, because, okay, I cast a spell on someone, I'm then going to raise my shield because having extra AC is always good. And the AC bonus is pretty hefty too. Getting that AC bonus is good, and it won't stop every hit, but it is going to stop enough hits to matter in the long run. Also, don't forget about how you're actually able to take cover as an action if there's anything giving you cover normally between you and an enemy. The cover bonus is actually better than a shield because it gives a bonus on your reflex saves as well instead of just to your AC. Also, never forget how good movement can be. I've talked many times on this channel about how you should never underestimate mobility, and really this is a prime example. See, movement can be used to give yourself cover, to break line of sight, to get into a flank, to really just do all sorts of things. You could take a step away from an opponent. Now they have to spend a step to approach you, and oh no, does this monster have a really cool and dangerous 3-action activity that they can use to do something super cool? Well, too bad they don't have reach and they have to take a step now. There's so many cool things that you can use with mobility, and never forget that that's a cool option. Now that we've gone over my super basic and general list of actions that popped up in the top of my head, I feel like I also need to talk about how it's just as important for GMs to use their actions intelligently as it is for PCs to do it. While some creatures are just obviously going to attack 3 times because they're either wild animals that aren't very good tactical thinkers, or they are literally mindless, generally people that have some sort of intelligence are going to be trying to use tactics of some kind. If you have a bunch of pack hunters like wolves, then I think it's reasonable to think that those wolves aren't just going to attack wildly through their turns, and instead they're going to try and flank with other wolves, because that's how wolves fight in real life. Now, that is the most basic example that I can think of, because wolves are obvious pack hunters, but pretty much anything with any kind of intelligence is going to do stuff like that, where they're going to try and, be smart. It is going to make things a little bit more difficult, but also keep in mind that if they are trained, or at least have a modifier in Intimidate, they can try and demoralize the party. And just try and be smart about it. It will make the combats a bit more difficult, but it will also make them so much more engaging, and that's ultimately what makes fights in every single edition and game more fun. I really enjoy the 3-action economy system in Pathfinder 2e, and it's honestly the part that I miss the most whenever I go back to play any other TTRPG system. For me personally, I only really got the action economy system once I really started going out of my way to try and make sure that I didn't waste any of my actions in a turn. It makes turns a lot more interesting, a lot more dynamic, and the best part is that it can make you kind of go out of your way to help out other members of the party and find synergies that you might not find otherwise. Making a funny quip to get someone off balance so then your wizard can cast Dominate on them creates a really memorable moment, and synergy is honestly where I feel Pathfinder 2e is better, like so much better than other systems, because it makes the characters work together and in really beautiful ways, and I really like it. Ultimately, I just want you to try and make every single one of your actions interesting in combat. Whether that is just through great trash talk or just by taking cover like someone with a single lick of survival instinct. Thanks for watching. Sorry if this one is a bit on the short side of things or if it's a bit low energy, but I've been a bit low energy, so it's bound to come through. Regardless, I hope that you learned something today, or at least thought about Pathfinder 2e a little bit differently than normal. If you have any feedback, then I'd love to hear it in a comment, and until I see you next, live a wonderful life.